Sorry. So what do you mean by business analytical tool? Business analytical tool is nothing but whenever the user is asking a query, okay, now the system will generate a report in a two-dimensional format. Okay, the system will generate in a two-dimensional format. Okay, so if you see this particular two-dimensional format, what do you mean by two-dimensional format? Any report which is generated using a rows and columns is called as a two-dimensional format. Okay, now it uses a concept called as extract, transform, and load. Okay, so what do you mean by extract? Extract is nothing but extracting the data from various sources. What do you mean by transform? Transform is nothing but conversion of data as per the business requirement. What do you mean by loading? Loading the data into operational databases. Okay, so if you see this particular business analytical tool, as I told you, whenever a user is asking, it generates a query, it generates a report in a two-dimensional format. For example, if I want to know how many employees are there, in my organization, if I ask this query, it generates a two-dimensional format like this. Okay, it generates a two-dimensional format like this, and if you see the top row, it is called as metadata. What do you mean by metadata? Metadata is nothing but data about data is called as metadata. Okay, so actually this data will tell what exactly the data is. Okay, so if you don't have this particular row, then we'll not understand what exactly the actual data is. Okay, and all other data is called as actual data. So this is about business analytical tool. And third one is dashboard. So what do you mean by dashboard? Dashboard is nothing but it takes the data from data warehouse. Okay, so it takes the data from data warehouse and converts the data into a snapshot. Okay, so it takes the data from data warehouse and converts the data into a snapshot. What do you mean by snapshot? Instead of presenting the entire data to the user, it only presents important data. That is called as presenting the data in a snapshot. Okay, so this is about the business analytical tool. Okay, so let us move to the next concept, expert systems. I'm leaving. Okay, so let us come to, as I said, we'll be completing certain topics of chapter 2. Okay, so these layers of information systems is also from chapter 2. Okay, so let us see layers of information systems. Okay, so we'll start chapter 2 again. Okay, so layers of information systems. So how many layers we have? Okay, information systems consists of 6 layers. First one is hardware layer. Second is operating system layer. Third one is database management system layer. Fourth one is network layer. Fifth one is application software layer, and sixth one is end user. So these are 6 layers of information system. Now let us start with first layer. What is first layer? First layer is nothing but a hardware. Okay, we already studied about processor. What do you mean by processor? Processor is nothing but a hardware unit which is required for the purpose of managing the hardware and also which executes an instructions. Okay, now it is also called as brain of computer or CPU, and which material we use? We use a material called as silicon. Now if you see this particular processor, it consists of 3 functional units. First one is called as control unit. Second is arithmetical logical unit. Third one is internal memory. What do you mean by control unit? Which controls flow of data and instructions. ALU performs arithmetical calculations. What are arithmetical calculations? Like less addition, multiplication, division, and subtraction. And it also performs logical operations. What are logical operations? And or etc. Next one. Internal memory. Internal memory is further classified into 2 types. First one is called as registers. Second is called as cache. Okay, so what do you mean by register? Register is nothing but a small memory unit, which stores small amounts of data. Okay, so registers are further classified into 4 types. Okay, so let us see what are different types of registers we have. Okay, so registers we have 4 types. First one is called as accumulator. Second is called as address registers. Third one is called as data registers, and last one is called as miscellaneous registers. Okay, so what do you mean by accumulator? Accumulators are required for the purpose of calculating the accumulated value. Address registers are required for the purpose of storing address of an instruction, and data registers are required for the purpose of storing the data, and miscellaneous registers are required for the purpose of storing the results. Okay, so why do we require a cache? Cache is nothing but every device has a speed. Okay, so in order to compensate the speed differences between the devices, we require a particular memory called as cache. Okay, so what do you mean by cache? Cache is nothing but an device which will compensate the speed differences between devices. Okay, especially between processor and main memory. Okay, so this is about hardware. In hardware, this is about processor. Now the other things, okay, which we have already completed, main memory, input output devices, storage devices, etc., that I'm leaving. So next layer is operating systems. So what do you mean by operating systems? Operating systems is nothing but a system software. Okay, so operating systems, okay, are will be acting as an interface between hardware and software. Okay, so what do you mean by operating system? It acts as an interface between hardware and software. Okay, so how many functions we have? We have around 6 functions, but these 3 functions are very important for our examination. Okay, so what is the first function? First function is nothing but it performs hardware and software functions. Okay, what do you mean by performing hardware and software functions? Okay, it performs basically 3 basic operations. First thing, it accepts data from the user and displays it on the application software. What do you mean by accepting the data from the user? It is nothing but whenever you are typing on the keyboard, the data will be captured by the operating system and it places the data on the application software. Like let us say MS Word you are using and we are typing on the system. Okay, so the data will be captured from the keyboard and it will place the data on the application software. Second one, it retrieves a file from a storage device. What do you mean by retrieving a file? Like let us say, if at all you say Control F, what exactly we do? We search for a file. Okay, so who is searching the file? It is the responsibility of the operating system. It searches the entire hard disk. Storage device is also called as hard disk. It searches the entire hard disk and it displays the search result. Okay, so it displays the result on the output device. Let us say add 20, 30. What is the result? 50. 50 will be displayed on the monitor. Monitor is called as an output device. Okay, so this is the first basic function of an operating system. What is the second one? User interface. What do you mean by user interface? A very critical component. Now you have 2 types of user interfaces. First one is called as command prompt. Second is called as graphical user interface. Okay. So what do you mean by command prompt? Okay. Everything, if you want to control the information system, everything you need to control by way of certain commands. Okay, so like let us say control C, control V, the same way you have around 5,000 commands. Okay, all these particular commands, okay, you need to remember in order to control the system. However, it is very difficult to remember all the commands. That is the reason the latest operating systems are having an interface called as GUI. What is GUI? Graphical user interface. Okay, now this particular interface have icons and menus. Okay, using this particular icons and menus, okay, we can able to control the system. Okay, 1 minute. So the next function of an operating system is hardware independence. So what do you mean by hardware independence? So let us see, okay, the next function that is called as an hardware independence. So what do you mean by hardware independence? Like let us say, if at all you see earlier operating systems are, okay, system dependent. What do you mean by system dependent? System dependent is nothing but, okay, it always depends on the configuration of the system. Like let us say you have computer A, like let us assume computer A is having a processor of 2 gigahertz and main memory of 5 GB. And let us say, okay, computer B, which is having a processor of 3 gigahertz, main memory of 2 GB. Earlier operating systems, the application developer has to develop a separate program for this computer and has to develop a separate program for this computer. Okay. So if you see the present operating systems, okay, we have an interface called as API. Now this API is responsible. Okay. So let it be any configuration. Application developer writes the program only once, and depending on the program, it converts. Depending on the configuration, it converts the program. Okay, as per the configuration. That is called as hardware independence. Okay. So this is about hardware independence. These are the functions of, okay, operating system. Now let us move to the next one. Layers of information system. The third layer is database management system layer. So what do you mean by database? Database is nothing but any physical storage. Okay, any physical storage is called as database. Okay, what do you mean by database management system? It is nothing but a software. This software is required for the purpose of organizing, managing, and controlling the database. So you have a hardware. How do you control the hardware? Hardware is controlled using database management system. So we have basic terms and types of database models, okay, that you can study. So telecommunication networks we have already completed. Application software also we have completed. Now let us move to the last one. I'll give you only basics of this particular SDLC. So what do you mean by SDLC? SDLC is nothing but software development lifecycle. So why do you require this SDLC? For the purpose of, it's nothing but a process or a methodology through which, okay, an information system will be developed. Okay, so how many phases we have? We have 5 phases. First one is called as systems investigation. Second is systems analysis. Third one is, okay, systems design. Fourth one is systems implementation. Next one is systems maintenance. Okay, so what do you mean by systems investigation? Systems investigation is nothing but, okay, they gather in this particular phase, they gather the requirements from the customer, okay, and they'll try to find out whether they can solve this particular problem or not. Okay, in systems analysis, okay, what exactly they do? They'll study how exactly the business is running. They have to understand the business of the customer. That they will do in systems analysis. In systems design, okay, what exactly they do? They take this particular business requirement and convert that requirement into a software. So in which phase the software will be ready? In systems design, the software will be ready. Now once the software is ready, okay, what do? Okay, they have to install this particular software at the customer's premises. That will be done in systems implementation. And lastly, we have systems maintenance. What do you mean by systems maintenance? Systems maintenance is nothing but once the software is developed and installed at the customer's premises, if they want any additional requirements, that will be done in systems maintenance. Okay, so these are 5 phases of SDLC. Okay, so with this we have one more concept called as CBS, core banking systems. So okay, this is easy. So I hope you can able to cope up. Okay, so what do you mean by core? CORE, centralized online real-time environment. It is basically a software which is used in banking sector for the purpose of automizing all the banking functions. Okay, so with this we have completed around 3 chapters. We are done with chapter 3, we are done with chapter 4, and we are done with chapter 2. Okay, so I conclude this particular session. Okay, thank you for listening, and okay, so I conclude the session. So we are done with almost 70% of the syllabus. Okay.